Right, welcome ladies and gents. Let's review Lord of the Rings of Power episode 5. Quintessentially boring. The epitome of boring, as it were. I watched this whilst drinking my cup of coffee this morning, having a good old cuddle with my Doge, Jasper. Side note if you want to see my dog, because it doesn't appear in videos anymore. Instagram, in the description box. But I couldn't help but almost fall asleep. It is genuinely boring. And this is one of the worst examples of media you can get, just when it is actually dull and boring. We're episode 5. I think we've got 3 episodes left. I think it's like an 8 episode season. Nothing's happened. Literally nothing has happened. We know what this story is, yet somehow things still don't really make an awful lot of sense to me. And I'm struggling to really get anywhere with it. So there's lots of interpersonal things being set up, but not developed. So a good example of that would be the Black Elf, and obviously his mistress, the human, the lover that he shouldn't have. And obviously they've sired an offspring. It's really obvious. Theo, right? He's covering his ears up. I bet you can't wait for that bowl cut just to move. But we've not got anywhere. They've not even had a discussion. Episode 1, there was a subtle hint. They came and spoke to one another by a well. That was it. Now we're episode 5. They've had no further discussions. They've, Theo is clearly a fatherless child. Nothing's been said. He taught him, I gave him a brief 2 minutes bit of advice to how to shoot a bow and arrow. And this is what I'm saying, is that there's all of these sort of interpersonal threads that they've not bothered to do anything with. But because they've not done anything with them, they are just incredibly boring. So a good example of something they've done something with, an interpersonal relationship, would be the dwarf and the elves, right? Their interaction. They spent 1 episode predominantly on the dwarves and Elrond. And that worked. But then they've seemingly ruined it by then coming out with more nonsense. Oh, it's a plan within a plan. Deception within deception. Just fucking get to the point. Like, if you're going to spend 5 episodes and you're still teasing that there's some more deception at play, I am going to tune out. I can't think of an example, but there's no payoff. It's setup, and more setup, and more setup. We're just not getting to the point. So this is not a condemnation of slow pace, because slow pace products are really, really good. I enjoy a lot of slow pace films, a lot of slow pace series. When they're held together, each individual sort of stories have mild payoffs during our slow-paced overarching narrative. So you can have an overarching narrative for the whole season, and then you can have individual plots per episode. And each individual plot per episode, which builds, like building a house, to the overarching narrative plot for the whole season. But we're not getting anywhere. Nothing is happening. It's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. The weird wanderer stranger guy? Oh yeah, he might be Sauron, who knows? Weird Eminem lookalike wants to find him now. For whatever reason. We're led to believe that they're supporters of Sauron. People thought it was Sauron at the start, but it's not. Apparently it's not anyway. So, this constant, deception. No, stop. It's got nothing to do with diversity, inclusion. This show is simply just boring. It's dull. I think this has been the worst example of an investment that you could make as a business. And what I mean by that is they have absolutely poured money into this. Poured money. And it's just going nowhere. Literally. What I can't seem to work out as well, and I'd have to double check my lore, is Isildur in this looks super, super young. Sauron is going to return, but Sauron's not made the rings yet. Sauron has to trick people into making the rings, convince them to do it. So, timeline of events, I'm thinking how old does Isildur have to be before Sauron finally materialises with a whole army and Isildur faces off against them? I'm not understanding it. Because, and again, I like the original books, but I'd have to look into my history again. Is that when did Sauron forge the rings? Because I thought he tricked them and gave them away, and people were like, yeah, cool, no worries. If that's the case, one would think he would do that pre-exposing himself as Sauron and be doing it as Anatar, I think the character was. Another visage of himself. But they don't have the rights to Anatar. So I'm a bit confused what they're going to be doing here. Maybe this wandering Gandalf lookalike guy is in fact Sauron. Which if it is, that's going to be weird. Whole thing is just terrible. Absolutely terrible show. And again, it's the worst thing this kind of media can be, which is just boring. It's dull. It's dull as toast. Which is admittedly not that dull, because I quite like toast. But my point is, it's not that good. Very, very boring. Very dull. Some of the shots look like, again, it all looks good. But I couldn't tell you like what the whole story is yet. I couldn't. We had Adar in the last episode, seemingly getting annoyed in this episode that the humans were bowing to him and called him Sauron. He's like, oh, you're not Sauron. Oh, well, I'll swear fealty to you then. It's like, so who are you then? Are you working for Sauron? Are you working against Sauron? You've got his orcs. What's going on? Do you see what I mean? This constant dumbass deception. And I bet you the writers, when they were writing it, they thought they were really smart. Plotting away. Oh, yeah. No. You do have to get to the point. The deception between the dwarfs and the elves. Oh, it continues. Got to get that mithril. So why didn't the king elf look pleased at the end when he's like, oh, he's going to go get it now then? Oh, cool, no worries. Surely he'd look happy. Oh, because it's probably more deception. It's just... God, goodness me. We had a ridiculous fight scene between Galadriel and like 20 men. Half of them were literally just standing around, not doing anything, when they could have tried to attack her. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Not a very good show. Oh, the king suddenly now, King of Numenor, doesn't actually want you to go to Middle-earth and work with the elves. Ha ha ha! All that stuff in the last episode, that's not true anymore. For goodness sake, this is what I mean. One step forward, two steps back. One step forward, two steps back. Don't watch it. Don't waste your time. And for those that do, what are you getting out of it? Let me know down below.